Well, yeah, I'm quite used to being the one asking all of the questions, so now I suppose I'll have to take the proverbial dose of my own medicine. So please be gentle. I have a lot of experience recording in my own little project studio, and I've been making my own recordings for a long time. Although most people have probably never heard any of my personal studio work, I was playing at some of it one day for Jeff Calder of the Swimming Pool Cues. And his ears perked up at a few songs, and he encouraged me to, really dig in and focus and pull together enough material for an album. I've been playing keyboards and percussion and touring with the Qs, and I guess it was like the early OOs. That included we played a gig on the air at XM Satellite Radio Studios, and I was filmed with the band playing the Georgia Music Hall of Fame Awards show. And let's see, I was also playing keyboards with the Glenn Phillips band. So I was accumulating a lot of amazing live musicianship. And so, at the time, I was able to focus 100% of my time to being a better instrumentalist on guitar and bass and becoming a better singer. I've been writing songs since I was in high school and college. I played bass in a band when I was 14 called Grave Shift. I spent my college years playing in Atlanta in a band called Unminded. And actually, I started playing piano when I was around 5, so I guess I've been writing songs all of my life. But anyway, Jeff picked up the red pen and helped me to arrange a really large body of material spanning several decades of songwriting. I asked him if he'd be interested in producing my project at Southern Tracks, and to make a long story longer, he said yes, and we set out right away, working whenever we could in the studio. And Mike Clark was very integral in helping me set up shop and feel welcome at the studio, and I'll always be very grateful to him. So, with the guidance of Jeff and the dedication of several amazing engineers, such as Greg Fern Cannell, Tom Tapley, and Stephen Morrison, our fifth Beatle, Stephen Morrison. They were all working at the studio at the time, so yeah, we made a record. Did I ever bump into Bruce? Well, I never met the boss there. I did bump into many, many amazingly talented people in the long span it took to make this record. Southern Tracks was a very busy place at the time, and I had to squeeze in, whenever I could work. Sometimes really odd hours, and, took 2 years to make the record, and I think some people were starting to believe the project was a mythological puff of smoke. They kind of refused to acknowledge it was really existing while I was working, and I don't think any local publication slated us as officially recording an album there, unfortunately. But, that's what happens when you dig in and work on a big project like that. It seems a bit unreal and maybe fantastical to some of the outsiders looking in. And it takes a lot of dedication and follow through to do it right and to really get it finished. Well, the Hot Place got together. I was playing live with the Swimming Pool Cues, and Jeff and I had been working out some of my songs together, with him playing guitar and me playing bass. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, on my home demos, I'm playing everything. I'm playing drums, bass, guitar, percussion, keyboards, singing. Excuse me. And Jeff started learning some of my guitar parts, and I've been a bass player in my teens, so I'm really comfortable playing bass lines and even writing songs from bass lines. So Jeff arranged a meeting between myself and this awesome Joe Maphis Mosrite bass from the 60s. Yeah, I guess you could say that bass and I fell in love, and the rest is history. And I'm a huge Cure fan, so I started playing a vintage Fender Bass 6. I really fell in love with that. So those two guitars, I suppose, became my guitar arsenal. And in the long run, they really shaped the sound of the album. The album has a bit of 60s psychedelia, 80s post-punk, hopefully something new in 2014 about it, too. We used a British solid-state HH amp on many of the songs on the album, and those amps are as rare as hen's teeth on American soil. I think they're from Cambridge. We imported the amp especially for this project. We found one in Glasgow. And the HH was a popular English amp of the 70s and 80s. You're probably most familiar with its sound from hearing it on the recordings of Mark Bolan from T-Rex, the Undertones, Pink Floyd on a live in Pompeii. I think they're playing some of their instruments through HH's. Big Country, early Cure, and, well, of course, Daniel Ash from Bauhaus 11 Rockets. He's pretty famous for playing a telly through an HH, so it has a really unique sound. Yeah, so we needed a drummer. Jeff and I were playing guitar, and the obvious choice was Robert Schmid, who I had already played with in the Glenn Phillips band and in the Swimming Pool Qs. Robert was the original drummer for the Qs, so Jeff felt really comfortable with him, of course, and, I played with Robert too, so the three of us worked really easily together in my little home studio. We worked the songs up by listening to my demo tapes. So, it was very natural. He's a great punk drummer, and my roots are definitely punk and new wave and post-punk, so it sounded great from the get-go. And since I was becoming the bass player in the band, we needed a second guitarist. I had played a decade or two with Mike Lynn. He was a member of Atlanta in the 80s and 90s, Betty's Not a Vitamin. Mike and I have a long history of playing together, so I was really happy when he agreed to be part of this new band. So Jeff, Mike, and I started working up the material, playing along to my demos, and when we went into the studio to track, we already felt loosely like a live act. So it wasn't a situation where we were technically a gigging band that went into the studio to make a record, but because in an odd way we had all played with each other in some sort of combination in the past, it worked really well right off the bat. The Studers were great, and I went into this project with vintage guitars, vintage keyboards, an analog mindset, I guess, in a digital world. I kept telling Jeff, who was really a super fantastic producer for this project, that I wanted it, to be as if a band like Echo and the Bunnymen or The Cure went into a studio for a week and, hit tape with the best takes they could muster up and make this record as if it were 1984. And lucky for me, Jeff was making albums in 1984, so it was easy for him to help me recreate an authentic analog studio experience instead of just patching together a ton of takes and Pro Tools. Of course, we did our editing digitally with master of editing, Tim Delaney, at Electron Gardens over in Avondale. But, we tried to keep the mentality of, good takes, real playing, preserve the real character, and, not just make it like a digital patchwork quilt. And I think that's why the album sounds like a band and, not a studio project.